The Boston Tea Party is one of the most famous events in American history, but what led up to this rebellious act, and what was its impact? Let's dive into the story behind the tea that brewed a revolution. In the 1760s, the American colonies were thriving but growing increasingly frustrated with British rule. The British government, in need of revenue to cover debts from the French and Indian War, began imposing a series of taxes on the colonies. One of the most infamous was the Stamp Act of 1765, which required colonists to pay a tax on every piece of printed paper they used. The outcry was immediate and fierce, leading to its repeal just a year later. However, Britain wasn't done. In 1767, they introduced the Townshend Acts, taxing essentials like paper, glass, and tea. Colonists protested, arguing no taxation without representation, meaning they shouldn't be taxed by a government in which they had no elected representatives. In response to the protests, most of the Townshend taxes were repealed, but the tax on tea remained as a symbol of Britain's right to tax the colonies. Fast forward to 1773. The British East India Company was struggling financially, partly due to the American boycott of British tea. To save the company and assert Parliament's right to tax the colonies, the British government passed the Tea Act. This act allowed the company to sell tea directly to the colonies, bypassing colonial merchants and making British tea cheaper than smuggled Dutch tea, even with the tax. But the colonists saw this as a trick to get them to accept Parliament's right to tax them. On December 16, 1773, a group of colonists known as the Sons of Liberty, led by Samuel Adams, decided to take a stand. Disguised as Mohawk Indians to hide their identities, they boarded 3 ships in Boston Harbor, the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver, and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water. That's around 90,000 pounds of tea, worth nearly $1 million today. This bold act of defiance was about more than just tea. It was a statement against British control and a call for independence. News of the Boston Tea Party spread quickly, galvanizing support for the colonial cause. The British government was furious and responded with the coercive acts, known to the colonists as the Intolerable Acts. These laws were designed to punish Massachusetts and deter other colonies from rebellion. They included closing Boston Harbor until the tea was paid for, reducing colonial self-government, and allowing British officials accused of crimes in the colonies to be tried in Britain. Instead of isolating Massachusetts, the Intolerable Acts united the colonies against Britain. Representatives from the colonies met at the First Continental Congress in 1774 to organize resistance. This eventually led to the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War in 1775. The Boston Tea Party was a pivotal moment in American history, symbolizing the colonists' resistance to British rule and their fight for independence. It showed that ordinary people could take extraordinary actions in the face of tyranny, and it set the stage for the birth of a new nation. So, next time you sip a cup of tea, remember the rebels of Boston Harbor and their role in shaping the United States. The spirit of the Boston Tea Party lives on in every act of defiance against oppression and in every fight for freedom.